Hello, everyone. In this episode of the All-22 Review, I'm going to be talking about Chase Young, kind of looking at his career in the macro from college to now, what made 2021 so disappointing, how did he look in the couple games he played coming off that ACL injury, and then we're going to make the decision, should they pick up his fifth-year option, and what is his career going to look like going forward? So with that being said, I see no reason why we can't get right into it, so here you go. To confidently project what kind of player Chase Young is going to be going forward after the ACL, we have to understand the type of player that he was before the ACL. And that's going back to college, okay? Now, Chase Young was viewed as an amazing prospect, like truly kind of one of those generational guys. His final year at Ohio State, he had 16 and a half sacks, 21 tackles for loss, and he forced 7 fumbles, which is completely ridiculous. PFF actually made the case that he should be the second defensive Heisman ever. Joe Burrow kind of made that impossible by the end of the year, but still. This was an article posted in November, so the season wasn't quite over, but it was a good chunk of the way through the season, and PFF wrote, his current 97 overall grade is on pace to be the best grade ever earned by any player at any position, either in the NFL or college football. He ended with a 96 overall grade. I don't know where that ranks all time, but it's got to be pretty fucking high. He wasn't quite at Myles Garrett or Jadeveon Clowney levels, but it was pretty close. Like Jalen Carter, Will Anderson, and Bijan Robinson are the best prospects at their respective positions that we've seen in a couple years. And their grades are all substantially like a tier below where Chase Young was considered. So he gets to the league, and as far as accolades go, he lives up to the hype. Like, he wins Defensive Rookie of the Year. He made a Pro Bowl. He got ranked as the 61st player in the whole league right after his rookie season on that list that the NFL does every single offseason. He finished 7th in the league in pass rush win rate his rookie year. So, like, it's important to keep in mind, like, this guy is supposed to be like the best defender in the NFL. Like, he's supposed to be Defensive Player of the Year someday. That's his potential. All right, now let's get into some film. Now, 2020 was the first year that I did any of this analysis work, and I remember thinking Young's rookie year was a little overrated. Like, it was pretty clear that he wasn't super technically refined as a pass rusher yet in terms of his moves, like using his hands to shed blocks. He wasn't necessarily very good at that yet. Here he's going to try a chop rip move to bend the edge and get to the quarterback. It doesn't work. When he tries to chop that outside arm of the tackle down, he's just a bit late. The tackle has hands in his frame and is able to kind of brace himself and survive this hit. He tries to rip and bend anyway. It doesn't work, and he just gets pushed up the field harmlessly. And that was, I think, my main takeaway from watching him his rookie year is he didn't have the technical refinement to keep his frame clean or the elite bend to really threaten the outside shoulder. He was obviously like very explosive, very strong, very good at converting speed to power, creating knockback, but he was not refined and not as productive as a lot of people made him out to be. If you go back to 2020 and you look at pressure rate of guys with at least 30 pressures, like, he was fine at a shade over 10%, but he was 47th in the league in this area. So he wasn't quite as elite as a lot of people were making him out to be. And he had 7.5 sacks, right? It's not like that's a monster number. But if you go back and look at his scouting report, you'll see things like initial hands lack purpose. He's heavily reliant upon athletic ability. He's not super instinctive as a pass rusher. So he was always like a bit raw in this area. All things considered, it was a decent rookie year, and you could project growth going forward from that. But his sophomore campaign is massively disappointing. His pressure rate actually drops to 9.2%. That's 86th in the league among guys with 25 or more pressures. 25 is the amount Chase Young had at that point. Doesn't exactly put him in elite company if you look at the names around him. He only finished with a sack and a half in 9 games. So what the fuck happened? When Young was a rookie, he was just okay at winning around the edge, not great. But during his 2021 campaign, it felt like any threat of that type of rush kind of left him. He really just wanted to do what he was good at, win with power, and try to attack that inside shoulder of a tackle, even if the outside edge was a little softer. It seems like he was missing out on cleanup sacks by always rushing towards where the quarterback is right now instead of where he might be when he escapes the pocket because of the other rusher. He was predictable, which made things easy, and he still lacked the nuances of pass rushing. On this play, he's going to attempt a stab and grab where this initial punch comes. He's going to try to lift it up with this hand, and then with his other hand, long arm the right tackle. But it just doesn't quite work out for him. He's just not quite coordinated enough in that situation. Here's his teammate Montez Sweat pulling it off. And like, if Chase Young did a move that looked that good, like, I would really be surprised. He just doesn't really show stuff like that. One more time, right? Trying to lift that initial punch up and simultaneously long arm the guy, but just can't quite get it done, and he kind of loses his balance. Here he is against Ryan Ramczyk, and I think this is supposed to be a hump move, but it's pretty ugly. You can't really tell. I think what he's trying to do is like attack that outside shoulder, and then when Ramczyk kind of leans that way, he takes his inside arm and just kind of tries to throw Ramczyk forward, which would give him a clean path to the quarterback. But it's not done in all one fluid motion. Like, he has to chop his feet before really engaging here. And his hand placement is just not perfect. He just doesn't get much of Ramczyk here, so it has no chance. He's just not really a fluid, instinctive pass rusher, it feels like. And he still looked plenty powerful in 2021. Like, he can really convert speed to power. And when he gets in your frame, he creates so much knockback, even on a good tackle like Ramczyk here. Like, that is some pretty insane stuff to see. But you need more than that. And he just didn't develop it like we wanted in 2021. The team was horrible, and Ron Rivera was actually pretty candid about Chase's lack of production, like more so than you usually see from a coach. During the bye-week press conferences, he said, sometimes Chase starts outside and plants his leg and cuts inside because he's trying to make a play, and the quarterback gets flushed to the outside. If Chase stays outside, he has an easy sack, but instead he dives underneath. Shortly after Rivera made those comments, Young tore his ACL, so he never really got a chance to respond. So his season is over, next offseason arrives, and Rivera says that 2021 was a little bit of an awakening, a little bit of a realization for Chase Young. He followed that up with, for us, hopefully the realization we hadn't arrived has set in, and that just showing up is not good enough. So the insinuation here is pretty much that Young didn't put in enough work last offseason, is how I read into this. He got complacent. So after a very long recovery, Chase Young finally returns, and I think he looks fine. Like, he looks like the same guy he was before, which is both a good and bad thing. Like, he still has that ability to convert speed to power. Here, he is just creating tons of knockback, using Trent Williams like a blocking sled, pushing him back into Purdy, and that's really nice to see. Like, he needs that. He definitely needs to show that he still has that. Otherwise, I don't know what he'd be. Also in this game, he flashes maybe the best rep of his young career against Trent Williams here, hitting a swim move that just knocks him completely on his ass. You see him get inside of his frame, just throw him aside, get that arm over in one quick motion, and he's running at Purdy, but the ball is out quickly. This is a pretty dominant win against the best tackle in the league, though. This play is pretty crazy against the run, where I should mention, I always think that he's been a bit better against the run than the pass, but you see the first step off that outside foot, crosses Will's face, and gets in the B gap. So Chubb takes the handoff. He sees this. He's like, I'm not going there. So he tries to bounce this outside. Then Young just throws Wills away and then makes the tackle on Chubb. So this is a really high-level rep. And to me, he had enough reps this year that show me like his potential hasn't been sapped. Like, he still is a pretty athletic, potentially dominant edge. So I don't think I'm super concerned about the knee and the athleticism and the ceiling. I'm just still concerned about the same things I was concerned about before, which is like, how natural does he look stringing moves together? Like, does he have a really great feel for being an edge rusher and using his hands to win? On this play, he's got to swim move this chip and then immediately turn that into another move on this right tackle. And he's able to do the chip, but then like, it kind of stalls out after that. 66 is able to get into his frame, and he's not quite able to find that pressure point on the elbow and chop the hand down. Here, he's trying to convert speed to power, and this could be really dangerous if, as he's driving off that outside foot, he is engaging with the frame of this defender, but his hands just go wide, and they kind of miss, and nothing much happens here. We're dealing with a small sample size here, but Young's pressure rate this season was 9.1%, which is not really substantially better or worse than any of his other years. So where does that leave his projection going forward? Well, he's still pretty much the same player he was as a rookie, with all the tantalizing potential to break out, but also a lot of the rawness, which is not ideal for someone going into year 4. The Washington Commanders have a decision to make. Will they pick up his 5th-year option? I'm thinking they won't, just because he hasn't really showed enough yet, probably. And I think that the Commanders kind of want to light a fire under him. They want to make him play for that contract like they just did for Daron Payne, which resulted in a career year. And maybe money is a big motivator for Chase Young. He skipped OTAs before the disappointing 2021 campaign. He said he was shooting commercials. He said he had to get the money. He said any of us would have done the same thing. Don't want to read too much into this quote, but maybe like the potential of losing out on a huge contract turns Young up a notch. I'm going to take the optimistic point of view here and say that is exactly what's going to happen. I think that Young is going to enjoy a bounce back year. I think that Young is going to have a career year. Going forward, I don't know if he'll hit the Hall of Fame potential, the Julius Pepper comps that he had coming into the league. I don't know if he'll ever quite reach that, but I do think that he is going to rebound and turn in a solid year and overall a solid career going forward. I think he has those tools. I think that he's showed enough in the past. And I think facing the potential of not getting a big contract is going to bring that out of him. That is my take on the Chase Young situation. Thank you all so much for watching. And as always, I'll see you next week with another All-22 review.